Bonsoir, bonsoir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everybody. Tonight's the night. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you all over here. You're in the studio. A lot of you have come. Il y en a beaucoup qui sont venus. Il y en a beaucoup qui ne connaissent pas. Bienvenue. This is a publishing company and printing studio that works with double change all the time. And so we are here. We have another double change evening that we're very proud of, with two incredible people tonight. It's going to be Reddy and Robertson. So one step at a time. I think Mr. Reddy is going to be going first, but just before, you're in our present exhibition right now, which is the Swiss-German artist Gilgen Gelser. We worked this whole woodcut series that's been up for 2 months, and will go until the end of July. We do shows here regularly. And in the front space is our resident artist right now, Matt McGee, who's working on a variety of things in monotype and in lithography. So it's a pleasure to have all of you here at the same time. One thing, très important, your cell phones. Please put them in silent. S'il vous plaît, mettez vos portables en silencieux au moins. Have a great evening. It is going to be Mr. Brossard, who's going to come up for the Master of Ceremonies, because I think you all are starting quite a big thing right now.
Indeed.
I have a feeling that it's all about to happen.
Merci beaucoup, Michael. Thank you so much. First of all, so I'm going to do a bilingual thing, or try to at least. Je vais essayer de faire ça de manière bilingue. Donc cette lecture a lieu dans le cadre, c'est la lecture inaugurale d'un colloque autour de la poésie américaine, nord-américaine contemporaine. So this is the inaugural reading of a North American Poetry and Poetics Conference, which is being held at the Institut Universitaire de France until Friday, and then at Université Paris Cité on Saturday. And we're delighted to have Srikanth Reddy and Lisa Robertson tonight. Nous sommes ravis d'avoir, enfin ça vous avez compris. We're sorry that Sarah Larsen was going to be with us tonight. Sarah Larsen devait venir ce soir, et malheureusement elle a été empêchée. Sarah could not sadly make it tonight, and she is as sad as we are. Elle est aussi déçue que nous. Je voudrais remercier, comme toujours, as ever, l'atelier Michael Woolworth, Michael, Lucas et Léa de nous accueillir ce soir. And we're going to start the reading with Srikanth Reddy, donc, que je vais présenter en français et en anglais. Je vais essayer d'alterner. Srikanth vient du monde des morts. He's coming from the land of the dead, as you will realize in a few minutes. En raison de son dernier livre qui s'appelle Underworld Lit, publié par Wave Books. And the reason why I was saying this is that his most recent book is Underworld Lit, which was published by Wave Books and which was a finalist for the Griffin International Poetry Prize, the Poetry Society of Americans for Quartets Prize, and a Times Literary Supplement Book of the Year for 2020. Donc c'est un livre qui a reçu beaucoup de prix et a été finaliste de beaucoup de prix aux États-Unis, et qui est un livre merveilleux dont vous allez entendre des extraits ce soir. Srikanth a publié d'autres livres comme Facts for Visitors, Voyager, tous les deux à l'Université de Californie, Conversities avec Dan Beachy-Quick, et aussi un qui est présent parmi nous. One thing I forgot to say, it's so great, and there's so many poets and painters here tonight that we really feel privileged to have such an audience. Et Srikanth a écrit un livre qui s'appelle Changing Subjects, Digressions in 20th Century American Poetry. Donc il y a un livre d'études sur la poésie américaine contemporaine. Il enseigne à l'université de Chicago. Il est aussi éditeur dans la mesure où il dirige une collection qui s'appelle The Phoenix Poets Book Series. He runs the Phoenix Poets Book Series at the University of Chicago Press. Chiku Reddy.
Thanks, Olivier. I wouldn't even say merci because basically this is my opportunity to display my ignorance of the French language in Paris. The book I'm going to read from is really about not knowing French very well, so I won't speak any French tonight. And I'm going to time myself and promise to be finished soon. And we'll alternate? Is that how we'll do it? Okay, great. And thank you all for coming, and thanks Olivier and everyone who's organized the conference, and Michael for putting my artworks on the wall here. This is from a book called Underworld Lit. 1. In the inky, dismal, and unprofitable research of a recent leave of absence from my life, I happened upon a historical prism of Ashurbanipal that I found to be somewhat disquieting. Of an enemy whose remains he had abused in a manner that does not bear repeating here, this most scholarly of Mesopotamian kings professes, I made him more dead than he was before. Prisms of this sort were often buried in the foundations of government buildings to be read by gods, but not men. Somewhere in the shifting labyrinth of movable stacks, I could hear a low dial tone humming without end. In Ashurbanipal's library, there's a poem written on clay that corrects various commonly held errors regarding the venerable realm of the dead. Contrary to the accounts of Moulian, Madame Blavatsky, and Quasi-Benefo et al., it is not customarily permitted to visit the underworld. No, the underworld visits you.
M'absentant, à la faveur d'un congé sabbatique de ma propre vie, je menais des recherches ternes, aussi vaines qu'obscures, lorsque je tombais sur un prisme historique d'Ashurbanipal qui me causa quelque effroi. D'un ennemi dont la dépouille avait subi de sa main des outrages que l'on ne saurait retranscrire ici, le plus savant des rois mésopotamiens affirmait « Je l'ai rendu plus mort que mort ». Souvent enterrés dans les fondations des bâtiments officiels, de tels prismes étaient destinés aux dieux, non aux hommes. Depuis quelque endroit du labyrinthe des rayonnages mobiles, se faisait entendre une tonalité basse que j'entendais résonner sans fin. Dans la bibliothèque d'Ashurbanipal, il se trouve un poème, gravé dans l'argile, qui rectifie quelques croyances erronées sur le royaume vénéré des dieux. Contrairement à ce qu'en peuvent dire Moulian, Madame Blavatsky, Quasi-Benefo, entre autres, les enfers ne se laissent pas habituellement visiter. Bien au contraire, ce sont les enfers qui vous visitent.
Sounds so much better in French, doesn't it? 3. For the past several years, I've taught an introductory course on world literature at the university where I'm presently employed. The offering has frequently proven to be a disappointment, both to myself and to the students, some in headscarves, some occasionally dressed in fatigues, who register for this seminar in order to satisfy their humanities requirement. As far as classes go, it was an almost painless experience. The instructor is fairly intelligent and enthusiastic about the material, but is unreceptive, even intolerant of anything that is not a poem, or a poem in prose form. See, Americans don't laugh at these lines. Made me question things, including the value of higher learning. Looking over the feedback last summer, I began to consider a different approach. There would be new assignments, self-assessments, and regularly scheduled office hours this time around, followed by a transitional withdrawal of black gowns through the spring morning mist. And because I know comparatively little of this world, I've decided to work my way up from below.
Ces dernières années, Ces dernières années, à l'université où j'enseigne, je donnais un cours d'introduction à la littérature mondiale. Cette proposition a le plus souvent fait long feu, se révélant décevante pour moi comme pour les étudiants et étudiantes, certaines portant le foulard, certains des treillis, qui s'inscrivent à ce cours pour valider leur cursus en sciences humaines. En ce qui concerne les cours, c'était une expérience presque indolore. Le prof est assez fort et il est enthousiaste sur son sujet, mais il n'est pas du tout réceptif. On peut même dire qu'il est intolérant à tout ce qui n'est pas un poème ou un poème en prose. Ça m'a fait m'interroger, genre, sur la valeur de l'enseignement supérieur. En consultant les retours sur mon cours l'été dernier, j'ai commencé à imaginer une autre façon de faire. Il y aurait de nouveaux devoirs, des autocontrôles et cette fois-ci des heures de permanence régulières, suivies d'une lente procession de toges noires dans la brume des matins printaniers. Et parce que je ne connais relativement que peu de choses à ce monde, j'ai décidé de commencer mon ascension au 36e dessous.
Four. Hume 101, Introduction to the Underworld, cross-listed with Divinity and Complet. In this course, students will be ferried across the river of sorrow, subsist on a diet of clay, weigh their hearts against a feather on the infernal balance, and ascend a viewing pagoda in order to gaze upon their homelands until emptied of all emotion. Texts will include the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Mayan Book of the Dead, the Ethiopian Book of the Dead, and Muriel Rukeyser's Book of the Dead. The goals of the seminar are to introduce students to the posthumous disciplinary regimes of various cultures and to help them develop the communication skills that are crucial for success in today's global marketplace. All readings in English. Requirements include the death of the student, an oral report, and a final paper.
Alors celui-là m'a donné du mal parce que y avait la viewing pagoda que j'avais traduit au début par une pagode panoramique, mais c'était vraiment pas terrible. Donc j'ai changé. 4. Humanité 101. Introduction aux enfers. Matière en tronc commun avec les UV de théologie et de littérature comparée. Dans ce cours, les étudiants se verront offrir une traversée de la rivière du chagrin, tandis qu'ils devront se soumettre à un régime d'argile, peser leur cœur à l'aune d'une plume posée sur une infernale balance, puis gravir une colline jusqu'à une haute pagode pour profiter du panorama et observer leur pays jusqu'à ce qu'il soit drainé de toute émotion. Parmi les textes au programme, le livre des morts des anciens Égyptiens, le livre des morts tibétains, le livre des morts mayas, le livre des morts éthiopiens et le livre des morts de Muriel Rukeyser. Le séminaire a pour objectif de faire découvrir aux étudiants les régimes disciplinaires posthumes de différentes cultures et de les aider à développer les compétences communicationnelles vitales dans l'économie globale du monde d'aujourd'hui. Les textes sont tous en anglais. Les modalités de contrôle consistent en la mort d'un étudiant, un passage à l'oral et un devoir final.
5. I promised my wife that I would call Dr. Song today. After putting Mira down for a nap and slipping outside for a smoke, I lifted the receiver. The sound it emitted, which I've heard without pause countless times before, seemed to me otherworldly now, like somebody's finger playing on the wet rim of a crystal bowl in a derelict theater before the wars. It's hard to say how long I stood there listening. It may have been seconds or seasons. The rings of Saturn kept turning in their groove. For reasons beyond me, our seminar had already moved on from late medieval Europe to developing world underworlds. I dialed 1-800-INFERNO, and before the first ring, a woman's voice answered in heavily accented English. "Is it you?" "I think so," I replied. Outside, the honey locusts sprinkled their pale spinning leaves in real time. Focusing on one as it fell seemed to slow the general descent. "Oh, creature, gracious and good," the faraway lady recited, as if reading against her will from a prepared text, traversing the dusky element to visit us who stained the world with blood. I could hear rain trickling in a gutter spout on the other end of the line. "Please," I said into the receiver, "remove my name from your list."
5. J'ai promis à mon épouse que j'appellerais Dr. Song aujourd'hui. Après avoir couché Mira pour sa sieste et grillé une cigarette dehors, j'ai pris le téléphone et soulevé le combiné. Le son à l'oreille émis, que j'avais entendu de nombreuses fois auparavant de son broncher, me semblait désormais venir d'un autre monde, comme s'il était produit par un doigt glissant sur le rebord d'un bol de cristal dans un théâtre délabré d'avant les guerres. Difficile de dire combien de temps je suis resté là à écouter. Des secondes peut-être, ou des saisons. Les anneaux de Saturne continuaient de tourner dans leur sillon. Pour des raisons qui m'échappent, dans notre séminaire, nous avions déjà fini le dernier Moyen-Âge européen et en étions désormais aux enfers du monde en voie de développement. J'ai composé 1-800 Inferno, et avant même que cela se mette à sonner, une voix de femme m'a répondu en anglais avec un fort accent. « C'est bien vous ?»« Je crois que oui, » ai-je répondu. Dehors, les féviers saupoudraient leurs feuilles pâles qui tourbillonnaient en temps réel. Si je me concentrais sur l'une d'entre elles, alors la chute générale en semblait ralentie. « Ô créature de grâce et bonté !» récitait la dame lointaine, comme si elle lisait, contre sa volonté, un texte préparé. « Se frayant un chemin entre chien et loup pour venir à nous, toi qui souillas le monde de... sang. Toi qui souillas le monde de sang. » À l'autre bout du fil, je pouvais entendre la pluie qui ruisselait dans une gouttière. « S'il vous plaît, dis-je dans le combiné, veuillez retirer mon nom de votre liste. »
6. While outlining the requirements for our first critical essay of the term, I noticed a hand rising in world historical time at the back of the classroom. What if I'm ideologically opposed to revision? Asks the red-headed boy in a New Slaves t-shirt. A city bus unloads its pageantry outside the window. A handful of sparrows erupts from the equestrian statue on the quad. I remember Sun Tzu's advice to humanities instructors, which I review on index cards at the outset of each academic quarter. Hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder and crush him. What exactly is your ideology, I ask, stroking my beard. I'm a Zen Naxalite crypto-objectivist, replies my interlocutor. How about you? I have no choice but to improvise. Pro-recycling? Anti-genocide? A voice from beyond my peripheral vision says, "You're nothing but a pseudo-Kantian neoliberal mirage with meta-narcissistic tendencies." No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are.
6. Alors que j'explique les attendus de la première dissertation à rendre ce semestre, je remarque une main levée au fond de la classe, comme si elle émergeait du temps historique du monde. Et si je suis idéologiquement opposé aux corrections ? Demande le rouquin qui porte un t-shirt New Slaves. Un bus municipal déverse une procession sous nos fenêtres. Une poignée de moineaux jaillit de la statue équestre sur l'esplanade. Je me remémore les conseils de Sun Tzu aux enseignants en sciences humaines, ces maximes que je relis sur des fiches Bristol au début de chaque semestre. Présente des appâts à l'ennemi. Feins le désordre, puis écrase-le. Quelle est votre idéologie au juste ? Lui demandai-je, en me caressant la barbe. Je suis un crypto-objectiviste naxalite zen, me répond mon interlocuteur. Et vous ? Coincé, je suis contraint d'improviser. Pro-recyclage ? Anti-génocide ? Une voix quelque part au-delà de mon champ de vision me dit « Tu n'es qu'une illusion pseudo-kantienne néolibérale aux tendances métanarcissiques. » Mais pas du tout. Si, si. Jamais de la vie. Oh que si.
So I think we're freestyling now in English, right? I'll read just a few more sections of this book where really this book is just an insult to the French language. I'm sorry. 7. A window onto the purgatorial cosmology of late imperial China may be found on page 26 of Léon Uyghur's Folklore Chinois Moderne. Over 40 years of residence in the Celestial Empire, this unsung Jesuit sinologist labored to dismantle what he once called the whole unbearable grid into which we have forcibly cantonized God's children. Contemporary Anglophone readers, however, must do without an English version of Father Uyghur's folklore. And you can't really see here, but it's just it's Chinese and French. There's no English translation. Right. I'll have no more English translations, Uyghur writes in a letter to his superiors, dated 3 February 1929. Lord knows, we don't want to edify Protestants. Thus, the strange tale of Chen from Hu Chu Fu remains largely unknown in this land. But if you'll pardon my remedial French, I thought I might piece together a rough English rendition for purposes of classroom instruction. So I found Father Uyghur's French translation of this Chinese tale, and I don't know Chinese, so I tried to translate the French, and you'll see it's a terrible, terrible translation. 8. In the district of Hu Chu Fu, the magistrate's assistant Chen was taking a nap in his cabinet of pain. Suddenly, a motorized airport staircase appeared and beckoned him to follow. It led Chen down a path hidden by rustling thickets of bamboo to a clearing where on a high pedestal an enormous mirror waited in the moonlight. Regard what you once were in your previous life, said the staircase. Looking into the mirror, Chen saw a donkey, muzzled with wire. The beast gazed sadly back at him from its muddy pen. Hummingbirds, the color of spilled oil, flitted across the frame. Now, see what you were in the life before that one. Rubbing his eyes, Chen looked again. This time, he saw a girl wringing a bloody rag out of an upper-story window. Her lips appeared to be moving, but Chen couldn't make out the words to the song. Again, said the vehicle. Chen peered into the mirror once more. Where the girl had been, he now saw a high official in old Ming costume, black cap, red dragonfly robe, belt with jade buckle, bent over a faded map of some unfamiliar region. Just then, a disheveled servant rushed into the clearing, prostrated himself before Chen, and exclaimed, "Don't you recognize me? I was your valet in Tatung Fu, but of course, that was over 200 years ago." Rising to his feet, he handed Chen a scroll. "What's this?" Chen said dreamily. "See for yourself," the servant replied. "It will clear your name. Draft only. Please do not circulate. Ce n'est qu'un projet. Ne circule pas, s'il vous plaît. Jingong Fai Fa Xiong, Qing Buya Shunhuang." Maybe I'll read one more section. 9. Our sitter called in sick yesterday, so I stayed home with Mira, watching a tree squirrel tuck twigs and trash into a wreck of a nest outside the kitchen window, instead of prepping for class. "I love eyebrows," my daughter announced in an access of universal grammar. "I love napkins. I love upstairs." On the radio, a woman with a faded Northern Irish accent described efforts to restore various archaeological sites in and around the provincial capital of Al-Hila, where the ancient Mesopotamian city of Babylon once stood. Speaking through an interpreter, a government official recounted how the 2,600-year-old paving stones of the ancient city's processional way had been crushed under the treads of M1 Abrams tanks. A heliport had been constructed amid the ruins. Wreathed in concertina wire, the remains of a ziggurat, which some scholars believe may be the original site of the Tower of Babel, however, appeared to be largely intact for the time being. "I love flowers. I love fire," Mira continued, upending her fruit cup. "I love foreheads, too." At some point in the day, the song left me a message, but I couldn't make anything of it. Later that evening, I inspected the bathroom mirror to see if I could discern any trace of infractions from a previous life. All I saw was the chipped and tarnished face of the mirror itself. I looked again. This time, to my relief, a man dressed as a scholar from the recent past, vintage cardigan, thinning hair, an untenured affect of worry beyond repair, squinted out from the far side of the glass. "I love forks," he recited, floating toward me like an antediluvian grouper in a Chinese restaurant fish tank. "I love flags. I love ziggurats, too." Thank you.